Caitlin Clark earns roughly $16 million a year off the court. The salary cap for her entire Indiana Fever roster is $7 million. That's the trap buried inside the WNBA's biggest deal in history. The new collective bargaining agreement was celebrated as a breakthrough for women's basketball, but for a franchise that just reached its first semifinal since Tamika Catchings, that $7 million ceiling could be the very thing that kills Indiana's championship window. And Herb Simon, a $5.1 billion owner holding every lever, has spent 2 decades choosing austerity over ambition. Herb Simon's name is stamped on every major basketball decision in Indiana. Forbes lists his net worth at $5.1 billion, a figure that towers over the entire WNBA's annual payroll. Yet, for 2 decades, Simon has treated the luxury tax like a third rail, untouchable, even as rival owners in bigger markets spend freely to chase banners. The Indiana Pacers, his NBA team, have not paid a single dollar in luxury tax since 2005. That is not a coincidence. It is a pattern, repeated year after year, no matter how close the team gets to contention. With the Fever, the same philosophy holds. Simon's public statements are filled with warnings about sustainability and the dangers of losing money. He has described the Fever's operating costs as unsustainable at $15 million a year and has cited those numbers to justify a cautious approach. The team's $370 million franchise valuation, impressive by WNBA standards, has not changed his stance. Even as the league's new collective bargaining agreement promises a cap jump to $7 million, Simon signals caution, not celebration. This is an owner who just committed $78 million to a downtown practice facility, but only after securing city bonds and corporate sponsors to share the load. The risk, he has made clear, is not just about spending, but about spending beyond what the league's revenue can support. The new collective bargaining agreement's opt-out clause, which lets owners walk away if television money disappoints, is a lever Simon openly references. He is not shy about using it as a negotiating chip. For Fever fans, these numbers are not abstract. They are the backdrop to every roster move, every contract negotiation, every decision about whether to keep a championship core together or let it break apart. The financial power is there, but the willingness to use it remains in question. And with the cap about to squeeze tighter than ever, Simon's next move will define the future of Indiana basketball. Caitlin Clark's arrival in Indiana didn't just change the way the Fever played basketball, it detonated the team's entire financial reality. Overnight, home attendance more than doubled. In 2023, just over 3,500 fans filled Gainbridge Fieldhouse on an average night. By Clark's rookie season, that number shot past 7,300, with sellouts becoming routine and ticket prices spiking across the league. Visiting teams saw their own crowds swell by nearly 90% when Clark came to town. The Fever's bottom line reflected this surge. Sportico's balance sheet pinned a $6 million profit jump directly on Clark-driven ticket sales, jerseys, and local sponsorships. But the real gulf opens when you look at Clark's commercial value off the court. Nike locked her into a $28 million deal, the richest in women's basketball, and her total endorsement earnings for the 2024 to 2025 season are estimated at $16 million. That's not a typo. $16 million in outside money, while her WNBA salary, capped by the league's new collective bargaining agreement, barely cracks $100,000 in her first year. Even with the cap set to rise, the maximum salary for a superstar like Clark will top out at $1.4 million, a figure that remains a fraction of her endorsement haul. The disconnect is staggering. Clark's presence alone has pushed the Fever from financial obscurity to the center of the league's economic engine. She's the reason the arena sells out and why sponsors line up. Yet, the rules that were supposed to signal a new era of growth now dictate that Indiana can only spend so much, no matter what Clark brings in. For a franchise that has never had this kind of leverage, the cost of failing to capitalize is enormous. Every dollar Clark generates is a reminder. The window to build a title team around her is open, but it's shrinking fast. The Indiana Fever's 2025 playoff run left no room for doubt. The window for a championship is open right now. After years of irrelevance, the team broke through, finishing the regular season as a top 4 seed and earning a first-round bye. The energy inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse was electric, with every game feeling like an event. The Fever battled through the opening round and pushed all the way to the semifinals, the franchise's first appearance that deep since the Tamika Catchings era. For longtime fans, it was a flashback to the days when Indiana was a fixture in the title conversation, not a rebuilding project. The semifinal series against the defending champion Las Vegas Aces went the distance, stretching to a decisive Game 5. Indiana came up just short in overtime, a single win away from the finals. That near miss wasn't a fluke. The Fever's core, Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell, proved they could hang with the league's best. Every possession in that series felt like a referendum on the team's future. Clark's shot-making, Boston's defense, Mitchell's scoring bursts, each star delivered under pressure, while the supporting cast held its own against a roster stacked with all-stars. That run wasn't just a moral victory. It was hard evidence that this group can compete for a championship now, not someday. The new collective bargaining agreement, with its promise of bigger salaries and a $7 million salary cap, was supposed to make it easier to keep a contender together. But with the Fever already this close, the stakes shift. Every season with this trio intact is a chance that can't be wasted. The pressure is on, because the math says these opportunities won't last. The title window is real, and it's open. But it's not open forever. The $7 million salary cap was supposed to be the Fever's golden ticket, a leap from the old world of penny pinching to a new era where star power could finally be paid for. On paper, it looks like freedom, but the numbers do not bend. That cap is not a suggestion, it is a hard ceiling. Every dollar spent is a dollar that cannot go somewhere else. And when you start to break down how quickly it fills up, the optimism fades fast. Start with the basics. The new collective bargaining agreement sets the maximum individual salary at $1.4 million. That is the supermax, the top tier reserved for the league's elite. For Indiana, the core is obvious: Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark. Each one is either already eligible or soon will be. If all three get what they have earned, that is $4.2 million locked up in just 3 players. 60% of the entire team budget gone before you even get to the rest of the roster. The math turns brutal from there. With $2.8 million left to fill out 9 more spots, the average drops to about $311,000 per player. That is not just below the league's projected average salary. It is barely above the new rookie minimum, which climbs to $270,000. There is no room for a 4th star, no room for a proven veteran, not even much space for a reliable 6th woman. Every contract extension, every new signing, every injury replacement has to fit inside that shrinking slice of the pie. The promise of the cap jump was that it would finally let small market teams compete with the big spenders. But the hard limit means that as soon as 2 or 3 players reach their peak value, the rest of the roster becomes a patchwork of minimum deals and unproven talent. The Fever's championship window is not just defined by how good their stars are, it is defined by how quickly the cap math closes in around them. For a franchise on the brink, the $7 million ceiling is not a launch pad, it is a trapdoor. Natasha Howard's name disappeared from the Fever's lineup before most fans could process what it meant. 44 starts, double-digit points, reliable boards, a veteran who anchored the paint when the pressure was highest. Her contract was up, and the numbers didn't lie. Indiana couldn't or wouldn't match the 2-year, $1.4 million deal Minnesota put on the table. That $700,000 annual price tag was suddenly out of reach, not because the Fever lacked revenue, but because the new salary cap had already locked up so much of the team's future in 3 names: Clark, Boston, Mitchell. Howard's exit was not just a roster move, it was the first real casualty of the new financial order. The front office tried to patch the hole with a string of bargain deals: Monique Billings on a short-term veteran minimum, Damiris Dantas for less than half the league average, Sophie Cunningham on a prove-it contract after her MCL tear. Rookie Raven Johnson, drafted 10th, slotted into the rotation at just above the new minimum. Myisha Hines-Allen and Tiasha Harris rounded out the depth chart, both on deals that barely cleared $300,000 a year. Every addition was a calculation. How much experience could they afford for the price of a rookie? How many minutes could they squeeze from a bench built on one-year contracts and two-way deals? The result was a roster that looked competitive on paper, but felt fragile everywhere else. The drop-off from the core to the bench was no longer a gap, it was a chasm. One injury, one cold streak, and the Fever's margin for error evaporated. The promise of a $7 million cap had turned into a scramble for affordable bodies, with every dollar spent on a role player coming at the expense of someone else's minutes, someone else's security. The math that was supposed to keep Indiana in the title hunt now threatened to leave them exposed, just as their window swung open. For every star the cap allowed them to keep, there was a Natasha Howard they had to let go. Las Vegas doesn't blink at the salary cap. The Aces' payroll for 2026 is projected to blow past $8.5 million, with Aja Wilson and Kelsey Plum both on top-tier contracts and a luxury tax bill that topped $1.2 million last year. Their owner, Mark Davis, treats the penalty as the cost of doing business in a market built for headlines and championships. The Aces tap into deep corporate sponsorships and booming ticket sales, using every dollar of non-salary revenue to keep their roster stacked. For them, the cap is a number to be managed, not a wall to fear. Connecticut takes a different route. The Sun have built a perennial playoff team by spreading their money across 5 core players, each making around $900,000. Their payroll hovers just under the $7 million cap, carefully balanced to avoid luxury tax while still fielding a deep, reliable rotation. No one player dominates the budget, but no one is left scraping by on the minimum either. It is a model that keeps the team competitive year after year without ever risking a tax bill or a roster meltdown. Then there is Toronto. The Tempo, new to the league and still finding their identity, operate on a shoestring by WNBA standards. Their payroll sits at $5.5 million, well below the cap, with heavy reliance on two-way contracts and developmental players. Instead of chasing stars, they pour resources into community engagement and local sponsorships, hoping to build a fan base before splurging on talent. It is sustainable, but it comes at the cost of on-court firepower and playoff ambition. Indiana sits at a crossroads. The Fever can spend like the Aces, balance like the Sun, or save like Toronto. But every path is a choice. The cap does not force Indiana to accept a bare-bones bench or let stars walk. That is a decision made in the owner's suite. As the rest of the league tests the limits of the new financial order, the Fever's fate depends on whether Herb Simon is willing to play by the old rules or rewrite them. The clock on Indiana's future starts ticking the moment the 2027 calendar flip. That is the year everything collides. Caitlin Clark's supermax eligibility and the first full debt payment on the new $78 million downtown practice facility. The collective bargaining agreement's fine print gives Caitlin Clark her shot at a $1.4 million salary, 20 times her rookie pay, still just a sliver of her Nike deal, but a number that instantly swallows 1/5 of the entire team budget. At the same time, the city's bond payments come due, with $4 million a year siphoned straight from operating cash. The math is ruthless and impossible to ignore. Every dollar promised to keep Clark, Boston, and Mitchell together comes at the expense of depth, flexibility, and the margin for error that makes championships possible. There is no hiding from the deadlines now. If the Fever want to keep their trio, they have to find room for 3 supermax contracts, pay the bills on a state-of-the-art facility, and somehow avoid crossing the luxury tax line that Herb Simon has treated as untouchable for 2 decades. The 2027 offseason is not just another checkpoint. It is a hard fork in the road. Either Indiana locks in its stars and eats the cost, or the window closes and the core starts to break apart. With every game and every contract negotiation, the sense of urgency grows. There is no more time to wait. The future of the franchise will be decided in a single high-stakes summer. Every path forward for the Fever now splits in 2, spend or surrender. The numbers are unforgiving, but the choice is not complicated. Herb Simon can open the vault and treat the luxury tax as a rounding error, just another cost of keeping a championship roster together, or he can pull back, stick to the cap, and watch Indiana's window slam shut while Clark is still in her prime. The luxury tax penalty, even at its steepest, is a drop in the ocean next to Simon's $5.1 billion net worth. A $500,000 tax bill for going over the cap is less than what the Fever made in extra ticket sales on Clark's first 5 home sellouts. It is less than the annual interest on the downtown practice facility. For a billionaire, it is the price of a single mid-level veteran, the kind of player who turns a contender into a champion. But the league does not force Simon to choose ambition. The collective bargaining agreement opt-out clause is his safety net. If television revenue disappoints, he can threaten to walk away, claim the math does not work, and cut spending to the bone. That is the austerity path. Let one of the stars go, fill the bench with minimum deals, and hope Clark's marketability papers over the cracks. The Fever would stay solvent, but the chance to hang a banner would vanish. Fans are not powerless in this equation. They can pressure Simon directly through season ticket drives, social media campaigns, even targeted sponsorship asks. They can demand transparency on spending, call for minority investment to share the risk, or organize buy-in from local business leaders. Every email, every hashtag, every empty seat is leverage. The message is simple: Indiana has the money, the fan base, and the star power. The only thing missing is the owner's will to spend. The clock is ticking, and the next move belongs to Herb Simon. Right now, Caitlin Clark's name prints money, but the Fever cannot spend it. As the league's $7 million hard cap collides with superstar salaries, Indiana's title window shrinks with every game. Herb Simon holds the power to push for a championship, or let the math kill the dream. In the end, ambition or austerity will leave its mark forever. Tell us, should ownership break the cycle or protect the bottom line?